Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to tell you about the scariest place in our town. I promise you won't believe me if I told you that the scariest place in our town is a local school library. The school is pretty normal, and there are around 800 students from all grades. It's a public school, so everyone from the neighborhood can enroll their children here. One day when I was hanging out with some of my friends in the park across the street from the school, we were talking about how boring this town was and how nothing ever happened here. Then suddenly it started raining heavily, so we ran for cover under the old oak tree that had grown over the sidewalk. As the rain poured down on us, we watched an old woman run out of the school. She was wearing a long black coat, even though it was summertime. And she was carrying a large stack of books that she kept dropping and letting slam onto the ground. What was that all about? One of my friends asked. Probably just some crazy old librarian, I said, laughing. But then the old woman stopped and turned around and stared at us. Her face was pale and her eyes were glowing red. "Run!" I screamed. And we all took off in different directions as fast as we could. That's when I first realized something was wrong with the school. Now, normally I don't get scared easily. In fact, I'm one of the most skeptical people I know. But this experience was weird enough to stick in my mind, especially since it happened right before my birthday. As soon as I got home, I went straight to my computer to research everything I could about the history of the school. I found out that it was built in 1927. It used to be a big deal back in the day because they built it to look like a castle. But now it just looks like any other rundown brick school building. What I didn't find was anything about the mysterious librarian. No one seemed to know who she was or even if she worked there. But something about her made me feel uneasy. That night I couldn't sleep no matter how hard I tried. I tossed and turned all night, thinking about the creepy old woman. Finally, I got up and went downstairs to make myself a snack. As I walked past the living room window, I noticed a light turn on in the school building across the street. It wasn't a security light. This meant someone was actually inside the school. But it was late at night and everyone should have been asleep by now. I decided to investigate. So I grabbed a baseball bat and snuck out the front door. When I looked across the street, I saw a figure standing in one of the upstairs windows. It was the same old woman from before. She was staring directly at me, and I could have sworn she smiled. I ran to the other side of the block so I could get a better view. That's when I saw her disappear into thin air. I stood there frozen until my mom came and dragged me inside, yelling at me the whole time for being out past curfew. All I could think about was how I had just seen a ghost. Over the next few days, I couldn't focus on anything else. I started having nightmares about the old woman, and I was too afraid to go anywhere near the school. One morning during breakfast, I was telling my mom about the strange things that had been happening. And finally she admitted that she knew the old woman. She said that she used to be the school librarian. She retired years ago. But I saw her outside the school in broad daylight. I protested. My mom just shook her head and said that it must have been someone else. But I knew I had seen her. And what was she doing carrying a bunch of books in the middle of summer? Why did she keep dropping them and letting them hit the ground? And why did she run away when she saw me and my friends? My curiosity was killing me, and I couldn't stop thinking about these questions. So one afternoon, while I was walking home from school, I walked past the library. I had told my best friend, Sam, about the ghost lady, and he agreed to walk me home just in case. But once we passed the library, his usual goofy self returned. "You know," he said, "it'd be awesome if there was a haunted library. We could do all kinds of experiments and try to capture ghosts on tape." He pulled out his phone and showed me that he was serious. He had downloaded a ghost hunting app and was recording audio messages. "This is stupid," I said. "There's no such thing as ghosts." But Sam didn't listen to me. He walked into the library without even knocking. I quickly followed him inside. It was dusty and smelled like mildew, and the only light came from the open door behind us. Suddenly, Sam dropped his phone and let out a loud yelp. "What?" I whispered. But he just shook his head and picked up his phone. His hands were shaking so hard that he almost dropped it again. "Let's just get out of here," I said. "This place gives me the creeps." But Sam had already moved to the other side of the room and was staring up at the shelves. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. I listened carefully, but all I could hear was the wind blowing through the trees outside. "Yeah, I hear it too," I said. "What?" Sam yelled. I jumped and then he screamed. "What was that?" We both froze and listened for another second. Then Sam slowly turned toward me and said, "I think we need to leave." We practically ran to the door and didn't stop running until we reached my house. That night I told my mom that there was something strange going on in the library. She just gave me the same response she had given me before, but I wasn't going to give up. So the next day, I went to the school office to see if they could tell me more about the history of the library. The secretary was nice enough to give me an old yearbook that had been donated to the school. As I flipped through the brittle pages, I saw a picture of the staff from 1983. On the back of the photo was written, "Staff of Branford Elementary, 1983-84. As I stared at the faces, I realized with a jolt that I recognized one of them. It was the old woman from the picture. Next to her name was written Mrs. Agnes Cartwright, and underneath that, school librarian. Beneath her picture was a handwritten note that read, "She died in the library in her sleep. The staff misses her dearly." That's when I realized that the ghost in the window wasn't looking at me. She was trying to tell me something. I thought about the mysterious note that she left for me and wondered if it was somehow related to her death. The next day, I went back to the school library and started digging through the archives. I found an old oak desk tucked away in the corner and began searching through the drawers. Inside one of them, I found a box filled with letters and faded photographs. The letters were from a man named Thomas Bramford, and they were addressed to Mrs. Cartwright. As I read through the letters, I learned that Thomas was the founder of the school. He had been a wealthy businessman who had donated a huge chunk of his money to build the school, and he clearly had very strong feelings for Mrs. Cartwright. One of the letters made me gasp out loud. It read, "I know that you have a kind heart, Agnes, and I trust that you will use my gift wisely." Then underneath the date, he wrote, "And always remember, the greatest wealth is knowledge." I stared at those words in disbelief. Could it be possible that the old woman was trying to tell me that there was treasure hidden somewhere in the library? At that moment, I heard footsteps coming closer. I quickly hid the box and the letters under a pile of books and tried to act natural. The door opened and a young girl peeked her head inside. "Is anyone here?" I called out. "Nope," she said. Then she walked in and closed the door behind her. I waited a few seconds until she walked away before I opened the box again. I spent the rest of the day looking for secret compartments in the desk. I couldn't find anything. Just as I was about to give up, I pushed on one of the drawers, and it moved forward to reveal a hollow space behind it. I reached inside and pulled out a small wooden box. It was wrapped in a strange fabric that felt like velvet, but it was so old that it had disintegrated in some places. As I unwrapped the box, I could see that there was a keyhole in the top. I ran family home to grab the key that I had taken from the old desk. Would you like to know what was inside the box? Comment below, and I'll post the rest of the story soon. Bye.